point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 644th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and, whoops. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Nancy Wolf, who is not here today. I'm not sure why, but she's not here today. I hope she hasn't run into trouble. This is the 644th edition of Energy Week, recording on the 9th of October. The news that we're covering starts on the 2nd and runs up to the 8th. This show is a news aggregation show that is taken from articles that were published as news aggregation at my blog, geoharvey.com. And you can get to the articles that I mentioned so that you can read them, either by going to geoharvey.com and clicking on the calendar for the date, or you can go wherever, scroll to the right, scroll down, find a link to tinyurl / Energy Week 644. And that should take you to the appropriate article. Okay, we're starting on Thursday, October 2nd, and we have a picture of a solar array. This article came from PV Magazine. Its title is U.S. Solar Will Pass Wind in 2025 and Leave Coal in the Dust Soon After. Based on current deployment rates, it's likely that solar will surpass wind as the third largest source of electricity for the United States. And solar may soon topple coal in the number 2 spot. This would leave only natural gas with more capacity in the U.S. to generate electricity than solar. The thing to bear in mind here, well, I'm going to read a note I've got from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It says that 92.65 gigawatts of solar capacity has a high probability of being put on the grid in the next 3 years. 92.65 gigawatts. It says of coal during that time, 0 gigawatts. In fact, 0 megawatts. They're saying 0 coal will be added during that time. Now, coal has gigawatts that are scheduled to be taken offline because the plants are getting old. The U.S. policy right now is to push coal, and it's not going to work, I don't think. So we'll see what happens, but the likelihood is that coal is going to decline pretty badly in the next 3 years, despite what the president might want. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next story. We've got a picture of a glacier in Switzerland, and this is the first story we're doing in this edition of Energy Week that has to do with glaciers. This is from ABC News. Swiss glaciers shrank 3% this year, the 4th biggest retreat on record. Switzerland's glaciers faced, quote, enormous, end quote, melting this year, with a 3% drop in total volume due to the effects of global warming, top Swiss glaciologists reported. This year's shrinkage means that ice mass in Switzerland has declined by 25% over the last decade. Now, 3% compared to 25% is not what I would call a huge amount in excess of what you would have. I mean, 25% means an average of 2.5% per year. 25% decline in the glaciers in Switzerland, however, is a big number, and it is, well, it's clearly increasing. What's happening, I'll talk about this more when we get to the glaciers in California in a different article. But what's happening is these glaciers are melting. In some cases, they're disappearing. In some cases, they get small enough that they just don't move anymore, and so they're not really considered glaciers. They're considered piles of ice. But I'll get into that, as I said. Okay, the next item is we have pictures of monopiles, or a monopile in sections. I should have said that possibility. This is from Renews. The title is Iberdrola installs first wind anchor monopile. Iberdrola has begun offshore construction of the 315 megawatt wind anchor offshore wind farm. Actually, that's probably Windanker. That's how you would pronounce it in German. In the German Baltic Sea, with the installation of the first monopile. Foundations are up to 84 meters long and weigh 2,100 tons. That's metric tons. They are being installed by Van Oord using heavy lift vessel Svanen. And I believe that might be Svanen. I'm not sure that we're seeing. This obviously continues the conversion, the transition that we're doing to, we, the Germans in this case, the Europeans, are doing to renewable energy using offshore wind power, which is it's an expensive form of wind power, but they like it. It doesn't occupy land that could be used for something else. It doesn't get in the way of somebody's beautiful view or something. And it has certain characteristics that are really to be preferred. For example, the capacity factor of offshore wind is higher than onshore wind. The capacity factor, if you look at a generating system of, say, 100 megawatts, and it turns out that it's going to run 8 hours a day, then the capacity factor cannot be higher than 33%. If it's going to run intermittently but 16 hours a day, then its capacity factor can't be as high as 66%. The capacity factor is the percentage of the maximum output that a generating system can do over a period of time. And onshore wind, you're talking about a capacity factor that is probably going to be at best 35% or something like that. But there are offshore wind farms that have a capacity factor of over 50%. And in some cases, in modern times, the capacity factor of an offshore wind farm can be higher than the capacity factor of coal. It just depends upon regulations and how things are done. The energy source that has the highest capacity factor is nuclear. That doesn't mean I'm advocating nuclear, but it is wind has a of renewables, it has a fairly high capacity factor at 50%, offshore wind. If it has 50%, that is fairly high, but it can have it. Solar has a low capacity factor. It could be 20%, possibly if it's good. A lot depends. You know, if you put solar into a desert on the equator, it's going to have a relatively high capacity factor. But these things vary. And nuclear, I see capacity factors for nuclear power that are high, by which I mean above 90%. And that worries me because it means I'm worried that somebody is taking shortcuts to get a capacity factor above 90%. Anyway, we are doing news from Friday, October 3rd, and we have a picture of a solar array. I'm interested to see that this comes from a place or a person called Dad Hotel. Anyway, that's what it is. And I don't know where that picture is from. It could be California, but I just don't know. This story came from Euronews. The title is, Solar became the EU's main source of electricity for the first time this June. For the first month in history, solar energy was the main source of electricity generated in the European Union. In a huge victory for green energy, more than half of net electricity generated in the EU, an impressive 54%, came from renewable sources in the second quarter of 2025. Now, please don't get confused. We have two things going on here, one of which is renewable energy was 54%. That includes solar, wind, hydro, a few other things. Solar is the largest contributor to electricity in the EU. Those are two related but separate facts. So solar could have 30% and be part of that 54%. So don't get off track with that. Don't be confused by it. Okay. The next picture we have is a picture of Pope Leo, and which is courtesy of the Vatican, believe it or not. This is from Clean Technica. Pope Leo spoke on climate change is the title. On October 1st, Pope Leo made a passionate address to an audience at Castel Gandolfo, urging everyone to not allow climate change to be divisive, but an issue that unites all humanity. He said talked on the 10th anniversary of the Laudato Si, which his predecessor, Pope Francis, urged us all to protect the earth. Castel Gandolfo is I think I would describe it as a papal getaway. It's a place that the Pope can go to get out of the Vatican, out of Rome, and go out into the countryside. But obviously it's accessible to a large number of people, and he was talking to a large number of people. But he was telling people that they have to pay attention to the earth. Okay, our next story is from PV Magazine Australia, and it is accompanied by a photograph showing children celebrating in Fiji. For anyone who does not know, Fiji is a nation It's an independent nation made up of people living on islands, many islands. I think there's over 100 inhabited islands, although the numbers of people living on some of those islands is going to be small. And there are, I think, something like 300 islands and islets, they're called, small islands that are too small for anybody to live on in any event. The title of this article is Australia Helps Remote Fiji Schools Switch to Off-Grid Solar Power. The Australian government-funded program Renew Pacific is assisting installation of 24/7 off-grid solar-powered clean electricity, high-speed internet, and digital learning tools to more than 30 remote schools and teachers' homes across Fiji's mainland of Veti Levu and its outer islands. So what we have here is Australia is helping Fiji. Fiji is not a place that has huge amounts of income. Fiji is remote. It is, I'm going to guess, I'm just going to guess 2,500 miles south of Hawaii, 1,500 miles north of New Zealand. It's southwest of Hawaii, actually. And northeast or so from Australia. Of those three landfalls, it's closest to New Zealand. There are other island groups that it is closer to, but it's kind of out in the middle of no place. And the Australians wanted to help them with electricity. So the school now has schools now have electricity that they can use for teaching the kids, and the kids seem to like that. Okay, next, we are up to Sunday, October 4th. We have a picture of the Wall Street Girl. She's not actually on Wall Street. She's on a block that has the Wall Street bull on it, and she's facing that bull, looking for all the world like she is holding it in contempt, daring it to try to move. And of course the bull is made of brass, so it can't move. This is from oilprice.com. The title of the article is Wall Street Warns of Nuclear Tech Bubble. Billions of dollars are flowing into cutting-edge nuclear technologies, from nuclear fusion experiments to small modular reactors and micro-reactors. But after years of buzz and successful funding rounds, these Wall Street darlings have yet to produce any of their promised carbon-free energy. Now, I don't know if this is a bubble or not, but a lot of money is going into it. There are other bubbles in the energy world that could exist. For example, manufacturing hydrogen is something that could turn out to be useful and valuable, or it could be just a place to sink money. Nuclear fusion. They've been talking about nuclear fusion being 10 years, 20 years from now, whenever now was, basically my whole life. And they're talking about technologies for nuclear fusion that sound to me like they might actually work. Now, whether they would work well enough to be competitive with solar or wind power is another question. And by the way, nuclear fusion is not done by using hydrogen from water. It can be done by using hydrogen of various two isotopes, particularly, that do come from water or nuclear waste. One of them is deuterium oxide, which is a form of water called heavy water. It's not drinking water, and as a matter of fact, the material I've seen about it would indicate that if you try to drink heavy water exclusively, you could die. I've seen results of experiments where populations of rats just died because they were given deuterium oxide to drink. The other form that is also used, you have to use two forms, is tritium oxide. And tritium does exist in trace amounts in nature. You couldn't get tritium from nature in quantities enough for fusion. But you can get it from nuclear reactors. Deuterium oxide, which is basically water, cost, the last time I looked, about $3,500 per liter. Tritium oxide cost maybe 1,000 times that. I don't know. I don't remember. It's kind of hard to get specifications, pricing on tritium oxide. But that's one example. Small modular reactors, I don't have any reason to believe that they are going to succeed. I don't have any way of knowing what they're going to do. And honestly, I don't think anybody else does either. The problem that I have with these, from a marketing point of view, is it's cheaper to build solar or wind that are firmed up with batteries to the point where they can supply 24/7 power. And I just don't see a reason for going to nuclear, except for the fact that it costs a lot, and that means a lot of money goes through somebody's hands while he's doing something with nuclear. But that's basically gaming the system. It doesn't deliver anything of value. And if if I wanted to have a data center or something like that, I would not use nuclear as the first choice of power. In fact, I wouldn't use it at all. I don't like nuclear for a lot of reasons, but just based on economics, I would say no. I think we should probably go on. We have a picture here of agrivoltaics. You can see the relatively high mounts and panels for solar power. A tractor is towing farm equipment. This is from Clean Technica. The title is New Agrivoltaic Solutions Keep Bubbling Up Despite Federal Opposition. The North American, let me put that up. There we go. The North American Agrivoltaics Award Program is yet another sign that agrivoltaic movement is transitioning from a patchwork of demonstration projects into a full-fledged job-creating, farm-saving machine that adds clean kilowatts to the electricity grid. Okay, job creating, yeah, these things create jobs. Farm saving, that's important. What you see in this picture is activities that can go on with solar panels. The solar panels can actually increase the yield of the crop on a piece of property that they cover and shade part of. I will get back to that in this program at the end of the program, and we'll talk about that. So, but this is something that a farmer can use, not just solar, wind also. Farmers can get incomes from solar power on their property, owned by somebody else or owned by them. Farmers can get income from wind turbines on their property. Again, probably not owned by them, but there's no law that says they can't own wind turbines. And they do try to do that from time to time. It is something that is very often blocked by people in the Northeast, in Vermont, but out west in Colorado, in Texas, in Kansas, and so forth, I've talked to people who really like it. So we will move on with that. Okay, we have a picture of Donald Trump, and this picture came from Gage Skidmore, who is, I think he may have been working for the White House when he took that picture. I don't know. I know that Gage Skidmore has got a lot of pictures that he's taken of people in the White House. I'm not sure what his position was. This is from NPR News. The title is Trump Administration Cuts Nearly $8 billion in Clean Energy projects in states that backed Harris. Grants worth $7.6 billion are being cut from hundreds of clean energy projects in states that voted for Democrat Kamala Harris in last year's presidential election. Meanwhile, the president threatens deep cuts in government shutdown. Now, I'm not sure where this is going to go, but it is. We're in a situation here where the president is going for revenge. He's doing this in the courts too, going after Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, going after former FBI Director Comey. And I just don't know what to make of this. It strikes me as being pathological, frankly. And he's got people who are happy to help him do it. But it's divisive to the country, but I think the place where it's most divisive is within the Republican Party. And we can do better than revenge politics, and which is what this is, I think. That's the implication that NPR News is doing by saying that it was states backing Harris that were where the cuts are happening, is that this is revenge politics. Okay, we're up to Sunday, October 5th, and we have a picture of a factory in West Virginia that belongs to a company called Form Energy. This is in a factory, I forget, it's Weirton, West Virginia. Weirton, West Virginia is a town, as I recall, that borders on Pennsylvania and Ohio. It's in that little panhandle that runs up between those two states. This is from Clean Technica. The title is Energy Storage Exists, and it's an Earthshot Prize finalist. U.S. toadies can claim energy storage doesn't exist, but Prince William, founder and president of the Earthshot Prize, seems convinced that it does. And U.S. startup Form Energy's Iron Air battery worked its way through the Earthshot Prize selection process to the top of the category. This factory is where the iron air batteries are made, and I want to describe these iron air batteries. We have lots of battery chemistries, lots. There are hundreds of ways of storing energy. There may be, as far as I know, hundreds of different battery chemistries that are available for storing energy. Lithium ion is one that people know. It's used in automobiles because it stores a lot of energy per weight. It has its problems. lithium-ion batteries burn, and when they burn, they give off oxygen, which causes them to burn hotter. They can be replaced with lithium ferrophosphate batteries that don't do that. They burn, but they don't burn the way lithium-ion batteries do. In this particular case, Form Energy, their batteries are iron-air batteries, which means that they don't have any lithium. Sodium-ion batteries do exist also, and other things of that nature, but this is iron-air. And that means that the chemical that is used in these the most is rust. They literally go out and buy rust. They can buy iron, but it's cheaper to buy rust, I guess. When you put electricity into rust under the right circumstances, it unrusts and you have iron powder. That iron powder will rust if it's damp, and as it rusts, you can extract electricity from it. The problem with iron-air batteries is that they take a lot of space, so you're not likely to see one in a car. But for grid storage, they are extremely cheap. They cost about 1/10 as much as lithium-ion batteries, and they can store a huge amount of electricity. So in this case, what we're talking about is iron-air batteries. The iron-air battery can store 100 hours of electricity, and the Form Energy company says that means that you can have enough electricity stored that you don't need anything except solar plus iron-air batteries or wind plus iron-air batteries. And these things are actually being installed on a test basis, but they're still big batteries. The head office of this company is in Somerville, Massachusetts. We'll see how this goes. My guess is that it's probably going to go well. They're putting these batteries in multiple places. Okay, where are we? We're still on Sunday, October 5th, and we have a picture of a BYD bus. This is from Clean Technica. BYD is driving Europe's electric bus push at Bus World 2025. Bus World 2025 is a show, and it has a lot of buses. Excuse me. As Bus World Europe 2025 in Brussels opens, the European public transport sector is witnessing a profound shift. At the heart of the transformation is BYD. BYD is a Chinese company, but its initials are based on the phrase "build your dreams." BYD has solidified its position as a dominant force in the continent's electric bus market. They're selling these buses in Europe. So I'm going to go on. We have a picture here of a British swallowtail. British swallowtail is the largest butterfly in Britain. This article comes from Euronews. The title is "Scientists Plan to Use Cryopreservation to Freeze Butterfly Eggs to Save British Species." The British swallowtail, Britain's largest native butterfly, has been classified as vulnerable on Great Britain's Red List. Its population has declined by 57% in the last 20 years. Now, researchers are investigating cryopreservation as a way to help it. In case this butterfly looks familiar to you, the British swallowtail is This is vulnerable. I forget which county it's in, but I think it's like it only exists in Yorkshire or something like that. I forget which county, so don't assume that I'm right about that. It might be another county. But if it looks familiar, it's because it is part of a group of yellow swallowtails, and the eastern tiger swallowtail, which we call the yellow swallowtail, is related to this guy. So that's why it looks so familiar. We're up to Monday, October 6th. We have a picture of we've got a train running through the picture. We've got a couple of trains, one of which has got cars, regular train cars, but one of these, the one on the left, is loaded with coal. So it's a coal train. This comes from The Guardian. The title is "Trump's Hatred for Renewables Means the United States is Falling Behind the Rest of the World." Donald Trump is the planet's foremost advocate for fossil fuels, throwing the might of the United States presidency into a battle to keep the world mired in the combustion era. There is no fiercer single opponent to the effort to stave off climate breakdown than Trump. And the rest of the world is, in fact, as we can see from various stories that appeared this week, the one that we talked about solar in the EU being the biggest energy source, the rest of the world is going to renewables. The rest of the world is going to solar and wind and batteries, and going to cheaper energy, more resilient energy, more reliable energy, less polluting energy that does not cause people to get sick the way that demonstrably combustion sources do, the way energy that doesn't pollute the way that these sources do. The rest of the world is doing that. The United States is living in the past. This is very much like, in my opinion, trying to sell buggy whips in 1925 because the age of the buggy is coming back because these cars won't last. I think this is not making America great again. It's guaranteeing that China is great again. And I'm sorry, but that's the way I see it. Now, we are on to China. And we have Xi Jinping in the picture. This is from MSN. The title is "China Eyes 3.6 terawatts of wind and solar power by 2035. China is aiming to increase its installed wind and solar power capacity to 3,600 gigawatts by 2035. That's 3.6 terawatts. Over 6 times the 2020 levels. This was amongst a new nationally determined contributions Beijing President Xi Jinping announced during a speech at the UN Climate Summit. Well, Xi Jinping knows how to get people's attention. And putting in 3.6 terawatts of power is an eye-opener. A nuclear power plant, new nuclear power plant, will produce about a gigawatt and cost anywhere from $5 to $30 billion. Building a gigawatt of solar power costs roughly $800 million to $1.2 billion. Now, a gigawatt of solar power is going to be about a fifth as much electricity as a gigawatt of nuclear power, which is why we talk about the capacity factor. But at a maximum of 1.2 billion, that is a quarter of the minimum price for a gigawatt of nuclear power, and it's a really small fraction of the highest cost for a gigawatt of nuclear, which is $30 billion. But the amount that the Chinese are putting into this is really, really impressive. China has been having difficulty, going through difficulty, trying to get everybody electricity at the same time that they're building up renewable power. So that's why they're building coal-burning power plants. Have been. I don't know that they are now. I think they probably still are. But yeah, anyway, our next item, we have a picture of solar panels. This is from MSN. The title is, "As Trump Cancels Renewable Energy Projects, Solar Execs Warn Electricity Prices Are About to Surge." As President Trump laid bare his sweeping plan to axe wind and solar energy projects, which he described as, quote, "the scam of the century," end quote, in a Truth Social post, now industry experts are warning of energy shortages and higher electricity rates ahead. Energy shortages? Yeah, demand is going up faster than we would like because of cryptocurrencies and data centers and things of that nature. Building fossil fuel and nuclear energy takes a lot of time. Building solar and wind, especially solar, but solar and wind takes maybe a third as much time or a tenth as much time. It depends upon what you're comparing it to. But if you're going to cut the things that can be built quickly, then you're not expanding your base. And I don't think the numbers have been thought through here correctly. So anyway, we're up to Tuesday, October 7th. We have a picture of wind turbines from the American Public Power Association via Unsplash, and an article from Yahoo. The title is "Renewables Overtake Coal, but Growth Slows," according to reports. Solar and wind farms generated more electricity than coal for the first time, though U.S. and Chinese policy shifts are slowing growth and put a global 2030 target out of reach. Renewables' share of global electricity rose to 34.3% for the first half of the year. This is the total amount of electricity used over a 6-month period worldwide. Coal fell to 33.1%, according to Ember. So coal is less than a third, and renewables are more than a third. Obviously, there's natural gas, there's nuclear, there's hydro, there's other sources. But solar power is so cheap that everybody wants it. And now, because we've got the batteries, it can be backed up to the point where it is as reliable as nuclear. I'm not making that up. That is something that I can cite. In fact, I'll give you the citation. You would have to look this up, but it's fairly easy to do. In March of 2022, NextEra Energy issued a report to its stockholders on how it was going to be investing in generating capacity. You can look that up. I don't have the source here, but you could look it up. It's not hard to find. Just Google that. On page 122 of that report, there is a chart that shows the relative prices of electricity predicted, forecast, by NextEra Energy in 2030. And which is just around the corner as such things go. NextEra Energy is the largest utility in the United States by at least some metrics. And it is putting, according to that chart, it is putting nothing into new fossil fuels capacity, new nuclear capacity. It's going to put 100% of its investment in new infrastructure for generating electricity into solar, wind, and batteries. That's it. And the reason is because they are so much cheaper. So much more reliable, too. They use the term near firm. According to them, a 4-hour battery, the Form energy battery that we were talking about earlier, the iron air battery, they're saying a 100-hour battery is going to make it possible to have the entire grid renewable. According to NextEra Energy, you don't need 100 hours, you need 4. You might need a little bit of outside electricity from time to time, but only a little bit. So 4-hour battery makes it as reliable as nuclear. Nuclear is not 100% reliable. And so that's the target that they're using. Anyway, that was the wind power that we were talking about as we talked about renewables. And now we have a picture of Alexandria, Egypt, and an article from Euronews. The title is Rising Sea Levels Threaten Over 100 Million Buildings. Now, that's not worldwide, so it's more than 100 million. A study published in Urban Sustainability explores scenarios of sea level rise between 0.5 meter and 20 meters. It found even the lowest increase predicted to occur, even if emissions are significantly cut, would result in around 3 million buildings being flooded regularly in the global south. Now, the global south includes all of Latin America, from Mexico down. It includes all of Africa. It includes all of Southeast Asia, all of the Southeast Asian islands. So this is Indonesia and Philippines and so forth. It does not include the United States, Canada, Europe, India, China, or other parts of mainland Asia or Australia. So these 100 million buildings are just in the global south. And I think they're probably going to continue this study looking at North America, Europe, Australia, and mainland Asia, and come up with the total, and we'll see what that looks like. So now we have a picture of a blade being moved. This is a blade for a wind turbine. This is from Renews. The title is Nordex Wins 126 megawatt turbine haul from WPD. Nordex Group has orders from WPD totaling over 125 megawatts for 6 wind projects in Germany. The projects placed in late September are for 21 turbines, including 6 N163/6.6.x, 11 N149/5.x, 2 N163/5.x, and 2 N133/4.8 units. The package includes 15-year premium service contract. Now that N, and then a number, and then a slash, and a number, another number. The first number is the diameter of the area that the blades go through. The second is the amount of electricity. So when they're saying 163/6.x. They're saying it's going to be 6 point something megawatts in each turbine. And the turbine's rotational area is going to be 163 meters across. So basically, it's just an ordinary thing. These items are in the news every day. But I wanted you to be able to take a look at that photograph, because that's how these extremely long blades are being moved. They're like the tiller trucks or the hook and ladder trucks that fire departments have, where you've got somebody in the cab steering, and then you've got somebody over the back axle steering, so that you can have these things turn in places where an ordinary tractor trailer wouldn't be able to make it in. This picture gives you an idea of what happens when you have to take wind turbine blades around curves and turn onto a different road and stuff like that. There's a lot of engineering that goes into moving these things around. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, the 8th of October, and our first item is from Euronews. The title is Solar Energy Named the World's Cheapest Power Source. A study from the University of Surrey named solar energy the cheapest power source. In the sunniest countries, solar costs as little as 0.023 euros per kilowatt hour. That is 2.3 euro cents per kilowatt hour, which is 2.66 US cents per kilowatt hour. The UK sits at 50 degrees north latitude. Well, some of it does, and that's as good a general latitude as any, and is famous for its dreary weather. But solar is the cheapest option for grid electricity even there. I think that basically says what we need to know about solar power and its cost. There's no need to go into it except to reiterate, solar power is the cheapest electricity out there. Okay, we have a picture of, come on, there we go. Alaskan wilderness. I don't know what that mountain is. It could be an important mountain, and I just don't know. I went to Unsplash. I needed a photograph. I went to Unsplash, said Alaskan wilderness, and that's what I came up with. This is from Euronews. The title is White House Doubles Down on Alaska Mining, Buys 10% of Trilogy Metals. The White House unveiled its investment in Canadian mining company, and gave it the green light to Ambler Road. As it gave the green light to Ambler Road project in Alaska, advocating for greater supply chain security. The plan is to buy roughly 10% of Trilogy Metals for $35.6 million with warrants for more. And I have a note on this that says the U.S. government under Donald Trump has also bought 10% of Intel. That is a large investment. 10% of Intel is a lot of money. Now, I grew up at a time when people were worried about socialism. And I had a lot of friends who were members of the John Birch Society or profoundly anti-socialist, and they would have said, this is socialism. Donald Trump is a socialist. That's what they would have said. I have no doubt of it. Can't ask them, they're all dead. But I'm getting old. Sorry about that. But this is socialism. The White House investing in companies, deciding who is going to succeed and fail, pushing, you shouldn't be choosing winners and losers. That's one of the things that my conservatives friends always said. I would confront them with socialism and say, well, what about the road? Do you want the road in front of your house to be owned by a private company? Because they would say, yeah, the park should be private company. The jails should be private. The police should be private. Everything they wanted to have be private because they thought that private organizations would always do better. They coughed when I said, wait a minute, are you saying that you're going to have a private company that can prevent you from going on the road, own the road in front of your house? Is that really what you want? Well, here we've got people who are claiming to be conservative backing the federal government buying companies and deciding who is going to succeed and who is going to fail. Okay, one more article. And I said I would be talking about agrivoltaics again. This is it. Here we have a photograph of lettuce growing, two photographs of lettuce growing in greenhouses. The one on the left with the yellow panels, glass panels above, those glass panels are photovoltaic. They get electricity from the light. The second greenhouse, the greenhouse on the right, is, I believe, the greenhouse that you can see through the back wall of the greenhouse on the left. Looks like it to me. And you'll notice that the heads of lettuce that are growing in the greenhouse that has a roof that is basically photovoltaic, those are bigger than the ones on the right. And that's not a joke. This is from Clean Technica. The title of the article is New Solar Glass Cranks Up Lettuce Crop Yields by Almost 40%. Despite the abrupt U-turn in federal energy policy, the march of American innovation carries on. In the latest example, the U.S. startup UBQD has developed a new form of solar glass that can help boost productivity in greenhouses. The new glass could have important implications. Now, the implication here is that you can, I should say this is another piece of evidence that you can grow better crops under solar panels than without them. And we know how to make solar panels that have no toxic materials in them. That's something that we should be thinking about. Okay, I have a wish for everybody. Have a gloriously goofy week. Well, yeah, sometimes I'm kind of goofy. Anyway, I hope you come back next week, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And goodbye until then.